Greetings and welcome to a special edition of Slant Alpha Adventures. In this little installment, we're going to go over creating a general aviation IFR flight plan for use on the VATSIM network. I'm going to focus on doing this in the United States, A, because that's where I'm familiar with flying, and B, because all of the resources that we need are freely available on the World Wide Web without the need for any kind of subscription. The very first website that I would always recommend you use when you're looking to generate an IFR flight plan is called the FAA Preferred Route Database, or PRD. There's a handful of websites where you can access this. I just Google NYPRD, and this will bring up as the first search result the VATSIM New York ARTCC. And this is my favorite because it's so simple and straightforward. You just punch in where you're starting from and where you're going. For the purposes of tonight, we're going to punch in the flight that we're going to use as our first GA Wings event, which is departing from Raleigh-Durham, KRDU, going to Norfolk, KROF. And we'll hit search and we'll see that there's no results. Just to show you, if we were going maybe from KRDU to KORD, this is what it would look like if there was a result. And you can see the route is here. The first and last thing there is your origin and your destination. But sometimes, actually if we just go back to search, sometimes you might get, if we're going from BWI to Boston, KBOS, and we hit search, you can see that there might be different results based on what type of aircraft you are. That's for props, that's for turbojets, for single engines, etc. But again, for ours, KRDU to KRF, there wasn't anything. So here's the next second best website I can recommend when you strike out on this website. This one is FlightAware.com, which many of you are familiar with, but I like this. It's called IFR Route Analyzer. And again, it's just going to give you a screen where you punch in your origin and your destination. So again, we'll go KRDU, KORF. It's basically going to give you a list of recent flight plans that have been filed in the real world for that city pair. And you can see that there is one here. We'll come back to this because I do want to show you how you can build a route on your own in case this website doesn't give you any results. But again, this is pretty much the route that we're going to build anyway. So we'll kind of keep that one in mind. And you'll see at the end that this is the route that we end up with, but I'm going to show you how to come up with it on your own. But again, if you were to go from, let's say KIAD to KDEN, it's going to show you the routes that have been filed recently in the real world, and it's going to even categorize them by how often they've been flown in the real world recently. So you can pretty much go with, the most frequent one is most often used. Some of these other ones might be used if you have to deviate for weather or whatever. But then you get to the lower part here, and it tells you exactly which flight used it and when. And as a matter of fact, if you click on it, it'll tell you what gates they started from and all that. I use this site a lot when I do airliner flying because I'll usually copy the gate assignments and such from the particular flight that I'm duplicating. But anyway, that's a site that you can go to as another source for some possible routes. So there's a third one, and we'll come back to it as well, SimBrief.com. I guess I'll just show you the, if I can type it right, SimBrief. I still can't type it right. Okay, SimBrief.com. This is another one that we'll get into in just a bit because it too is going to come up with that same route that we saw earlier for Raleigh to Norfolk. But again, I want to kind of show you how you can build that route on your own. If you go to any of these three websites and you don't get any useful guidance, this is how you can build a route on your own. So here's SkyVector, and SkyVector is basically, it's the entire collection of US VFR charts plus the entire collection of US low IFR charts and US high IFR charts. And they've all been kind of stitched together into this national map, and you can kind of go anywhere on this map and see. You can go to look at the source charts by themselves if you want. This is actually the chart that this information came from. But if you go to this world high, you just get basically all of the charts digitally stitched together so that they cover the entire US. And you can use SkyVector outside the US as well, but you don't have quite the detailed information, again, because a lot of the charts outside the US are not freely available, so they have kind of simplified, watered down ones that you can use. But anyway, flight plan up here, we can punch in KRDU to KORF. It's going to go ahead and plot that in a direct path. Obviously, we want to take a path that is more friendly to air traffic control. You can't just go direct to your destination from wherever you are, because then you just get random zigzags across the airspace, and air traffic control has no way to line them up and get them moving in an orderly fashion and make sure that they don't hit each other. So we have these routes in the sky that we use, called Victor Airways in the case of the low altitude ones, the general aviation ones. And you can see we've got some Victor Airways that do seem to connect our origin and our destination. But which, how would we get from the airport to just join one of these airways? And that's where you're looking at the departure procedures, or SIDs, standard instrument departures, and you're looking at your STARS, or your arrival procedures, your standard terminal arrival routes. And most, medium to large size airports have these. And we want to make sure that we're using SIDs and STARS as much as possible, because those are what help air traffic control keep the traffic coming in and out in an orderly fashion. So we need to start by looking at the departure procedures out of Raleigh and seeing if any of them kind of go northeast from Raleigh-Durham. So we'll go to another website, and I'll put all these website links into the video description, so you'll have all of those handy, by the way. But there's a lot of different places you can go. Actually, you can go right to SkyVector itself and get some of these departure and arrival procedures for both your origin and your destination. They open up in a kind of a pop-up window here. I just like to go and pull those charts separately so that I can, make them bigger, smaller, move them around however I need to. And this is called the FAA Digital Terminal Procedures page, DTPP. And again, I use it a lot, so it just pops right up there. And you go here under search, and we can type our origin, KRDU. And I know I'm going through this kind of fast, guys, but definitely pause and rewind as you need to, and you can always ask questions in the comments, or you can get in touch with me over my social media on the Slant Alpha Adventures pages. But anyway, you got the airport diagram here, obviously. We'll use that when we fly, but we don't need that for the flight planning purposes. But here's all your departure procedures, and I'm going to open these in new tabs. Bexco, come on, open a new tab, please. There we go. Blue Devil, Fayetteville, Hooks. I'm just going to right-click and open all these in new tabs. Oxford, PAC, and it's going to seem like a lot. We're going to skip the continuation page on the Raleigh for now. It's going to seem like a lot, but we'll be able to narrow down which ones are useful to us and which ones aren't real quickly here. So this Bexco, right off the bat, this one does go kind of north and east. So we'll save that one. That one might be useful to us. Blue Devil 6 looks like it goes west of the airport. Don't need it. Fayetteville goes south and west. The Hooks 3 goes pretty much straight on south. This one we're going to rotate to make it make sense to us, but Hurrick does seem to go kind of east and a little bit north, so we'll hold on to that one. Elwood goes north and west, don't need it. The Oxford 3 does go north and east, so we'll hold on to that. PAC 8 looks like it goes west. The Raleigh 9 is kind of a generic vector departure for anywhere, so we'll hold on to that too. Rosbo 3 goes south, don't need it. Shepherd goes west, and Tar Heel goes south. So we're left with these four, really. Bexco, which goes north to Lawrenceville, Hurrick, which goes east to Tar River, and Oxford, which goes north to Flat Rock. And then we got the Raleigh 9, which goes kind of anywhere we need it to go. Let's go back into SkyVector and punch in those three transition points. What was it? Flat Rock, Lawrenceville, LVL, and what was the third one? Tar River. And let's see which of these might be useful to us. So it looks like this one way up here, what is that? Okay, so that's Flat Rock. You see where it's highlighting FAK over in the flight plan. So that's Flat Rock. That's way too north for us. That's not going to be helpful to us. This one here is also way too north. Lawrenceville. Okay, yep, LVL. See how that highlights in the flight plan so that as I hover over it. So those two are not going to be useful. So the one we want to focus on is the one that goes out to Tar River. We'll just go ahead and clear that out for now. But it looks like that Tar River one is the way to go. So that takes up the Becks go. Yeah, the Hurek is a good possibility. The Oxford's not useful to us either. So notice, now the Hurek does say, there's nothing in the notes that say turbojet aircraft only. Some of these do specify you have to be turbojet or turboprop only. So you look in these notes here, you don't see any of that. That means general aviation can use this. But this is an RNAV departure. And you can tell because not only does it say that right here, over here on the title, but it also includes this GPS point. It's got that 4-pointed star with a circle in the middle. That's a GPS point, so you need a GPS or an FMC to be able to find this point called Stormy. So this is an RNAV departure. If you're going to do this non-RNAV, then instead of using the Hurek 3 to get to Tar River, we'll actually use the Raleigh 9 to get to Tar River. And basically, this one's fairly straightforward one. You just fly runway heading until ATC gives you vectors. And you can see Tar River is one of the points you can file as your departure point. So either the Hurek 3 to Tar River will be our departure procedure, or the Raleigh 9 will be our departure procedure if we're going to do this non-RNAV. Basically, we're going to do it Slant Alpha. Okay, so that covers the departure from Raleigh. Now let's go to the arrival into Norfolk. Let's go back, and we'll go Corf. There we are. Let's pull up the stars, the arrival procedures. We got the drone 2. I'm going to skip the continuation page for now, and the Turks 2. So looks like there's way fewer options. Let's see if any of them come from the direction we need them to. So here's drone 2, and oh, yep, that does in fact come from our RDU. We're going to pick it up from Tar River. And then the Turks kind of comes in from, basically from the west. But that won't be useful to us. So it looks like, and if this is not an RNAV procedure, so this drone 2 would be useful to us whether we're RNAV or not. So now let's look at the continuation page of the drone 2. We've got the option to pick it up from RDU or from Kingston. And then at whatever point we do, we end up at drone. So let's come back here. It's this branch. Let's do this. It's this branch of the drone 2 that we're going to fly from Raleigh-Durham, okay? However, there's a problem. We're not going to be able to be at flight level 190 immediately after departing from RDU. We're not going to be able to be at flight level 190 along this leg either. So we're not really, we could be at 11,000 from this point. But Cofield is not one of the transitions. So really, the only point we're following on this procedure is drone. So this is kind of a little bit of an odd one. We're going to be flying this arrival procedure, but we're only flying the last point of it. So technically speaking, going back to, let's see if we get the snipping tool out of the way here. Want to save changes to that? No, we don't. Come back to SkyVector. So let's just presume for our purposes we're going to do this RNAV. So Hurek, H-U-R-I-C, what was it, Hurek 2 or 3? I think it was 3. Let's come back and look. Yeah, Hurek 3. Okay, Hurek 3 to Tar River. But then we're not really following the procedure up to drone. From Tar River, we're going just basically direct to Cofield. Whoops, CVI here. And then to drone, and then we're picking up the drone 2, although at that point the drone 2 is over. But we're still technically doing CVI, drone 2. Okay, so there's our route, and again, if you'll remember, that's the one that did come up on the FlightAware IFR flight analyzer. So this is, we've basically arrived at what it told us we would. So the only substitution you're going to make if you're going to be non-RNAV is you'd be flying the Raleigh 9 rather than the Hurek 3 to get to Tar River. You'll notice if you try to put the RDU 9 in here, it won't take it, because the Raleigh 9 is just very simply a vector departure. You're going to fly radar vectors. I mean, you're going to fly runway heading until ATC gives you radar vectors out to your transition point. So there's really nothing more to it than that, and so it won't pop into SkyVector. If you're going to do this non-RNAV, there is nothing that you need to do further to get this route into your simulator, because you're not going to need to program anything. You're literally just only going to need the VOR frequencies here. You got 117.8 for Tar River VOR, and then further up the line we've got Cofield 114.6, and we actually don't need the Norfolk on 116.9, although it is there. You can also find these frequencies on the drone arrival. There you've got you got Tar River on 117.8, you got Cofield on 114.6, and then again, you don't need this because you're only going to be taking this 13-mile leg off of Cofield to get to this point drone, and then you're going to get vectored in from drone, so you won't need to use this Norfolk. But you can have it, and you can tune it just as a reference point to how far you are from the airport. So, but again, there's nothing to program, because when you're flying it non-RNAV, you're only using the radio navigation. If you're going to fly this RNAV, you've got this full route that you're going to fly RNAV, you're going to program it into your GPS. If you are in X-plane, you can just program the GPS right from the simulator. If you're in FSX, you've got another step that you need to do in order to get this route into the default FSX GPS. That's where we're going to come back to the site I mentioned earlier, which is called SimBrief. So SimBrief.com, we'll go ahead and log in. Yep, there we are. So once you have a login for this page, you might need to register for it, but it's free. You don't have to pay for any subscription or anything, but you might need to set up your login information. You'll go to the dispatch system, and you'll do a new flight. All right, now it's going to give you some options here that you don't really need. Airline, flight number, don't need to fill in. We'll worry about the alternate later. Date and time doesn't really matter. Aircraft type doesn't even really matter. So what SimBrief is going to try and do is generate an entire briefing package for you, which is going to include things about fuel planning and time estimates and things like that. In order to create a route that you can import straight into FSX, you don't need to worry about any of that. So you'll notice, for example, the Beach Baron BE58 isn't even in here, I don't think. Yeah, so it doesn't matter. Just pick the closest type. It doesn't even matter. So we're going to just ignore the fuel planning and time planning information that it provides. So again, advanced aircraft options, none of that matters. Optional entries, yeah, they're optional. You don't need any of them. You should, if you have a Navigraph subscription, you do want to update to the current AirAC cycle. If you don't, if you have an outdated AirAC cycle that comes with your default SimBrief subscription, that's probably fine. I don't think any of these procedures have changed recently, so an outdated AirAC is probably okay for this particular flight. Let's just put in KRDU and KORF up here for departure and arrival. It's going to automatically choose an alternate for us. That's fine. We may or may not use that. We'll do our alternate planning later on. It actually has suggested, again, a route that looks familiar to us by now probably. The only thing it doesn't have is the drone 2 arrival procedure after drone. But remember I said that drone is the only point on the arrival procedure we're following. So for purposes of putting this in your GPS, it doesn't matter. This is complete. What else do we need? We don't. I think we're good there, actually. I don't think there's anything else we need to do. Go ahead and back up to the top. Right under dispatch options, we'll hit Generate OFP, Generate Operational Flight Plan. Do we confirm we want to generate this flight plan? It's going to wipe out anything we did previously. Yes, that's what we want to do. All right, so it's processing, and it doesn't take long, a few seconds. All right, so here's our operational flight plan. This is all well and good, and like I said, it gives you a bunch of fuel planning and time estimates that you're not really going to need, blah, blah, blah. Here's the cool stuff. Here's where you can export your flight plan into one of any of these dozens of formats that you can then automatically just load up. And the one you want for FSX, we want to disregard this. We're actually going to fly the SID out of RDU, so we don't want to use that. We want to use this here. We'll go ahead and download it. There it is. I'll drag it out here. And actually, I think we can, at this point, we'll leave that open for now. Where do we want to put this? We want to put this in Documents, Flight Simulator X files, and you can see I've got some default startup saves here. Just drag that right into that folder. It's the only flight plan I've got in there. But there we go. We'll go ahead and start FSX. And we'll time warp ahead a little bit. There we are. Okay, let's change planes. We're going to do the Beach Baron, like I said. Alright, that's up here. Beechcraft. Nope, that's King Air. Where is it? Here's Beach Baron. Okay, there we go. Let's go right here to Flight Planner. And we're going to skip all this stuff here. We're just going to load one. Oh, look at that. It's right there. We're going to open it. We're going to hit OK. It's going to ask us, do you want Flight Simulator to move your aircraft to the departure airport? Yes. However, then we'll go back into that location because it's going to put you on the active runway. So now we'll come in here and we'll select, there's all the gates, but here's all the general aviation parking. So we'll just pick any one of these ones that say small. And we'll hit OK. I like to change it to daytime. Where we go? Change. Make it daytime here. OK. And I think that's it. We'll just go ahead and hit fly. Alright, here we are. And the last thing to do then is to check and make sure we pull up our default FSX GPS. It looks like we've got a route in here. Let's increase the range. See, it does indeed look like it goes where we think. Let's hit the FPL button, flight plan, and compare it. Let's come back and check the Hurric departure. It does indeed start with a point called Stormy, and then Hurric, and then Tar River. And that's exactly what we got here. Stormy, and then Hurric, and then Tar River. And then we know that the route goes to CVI, I forget what that's called, but that's on here on the drone. Oh yeah, that's called Cofield. And then to the point called Drone, and then we're getting radar vectored in from Drone. So there you go. You've got it all set, and you're ready to go ahead and fly it in your default FSX GPS. So that about covers route creation. You can basically do this same process for any origin and destination you have in the US. I would first check with the preferred route database, then I would check FlightAware, then I would check SimBrief, and then I would just go to SkyVector and the FAA site and pull up the charts on your own and construct your own. But that's the basic flow I would have for pretty much any origin and destination within the US that I might be flying to and from. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments. And otherwise, we will see you live on Twitch TV. And please be safe in your own travels and your own adventures in the meantime. Take care.